working families are facing a £700 spike in April. They won't even receive their £200 loan from the Chancellor until October. The wholesale price of oil and gas is now ballooning. So, by October, when the loan finally comes in, household bills are set to shoot up by another £1,000. So I ask again, when is the Prime Minister going to force the Chancellor to U-turn?
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, if he's asking for the Chancellor to U-turn on the support that we're giving to families and households, I think that he's absolutely out of his mind.
Before Russia invaded Ukraine, North Sea oil and gas companies were making bumper profits. BP made £9.5 billion. Shell made £14 billion. In their own words, more money than they know what to do with. When will the Prime Minister admit he's got this badly wrong, put a windfall tax on those super profits and use the money to cut household energy bills?
The net result of that would simply be to see the oil companies put their prices up yet higher, Mr. Speaker, and make it more difficult for them to do what we need them to do, and which I think, by the way, Mr. Speaker, they are doing very responsibly at the moment, and that is divesting from dependence on Russian oil and gas.
Protecting energy profits, not working people. Doesn't that say it all? We need to improve our long-term energy security. That starts with supporting new nuclear and renewables. And stop supporting policies that make us so dependent on foreign gas.
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, it's thanks to the policies that this government has pursued that we actually only are dependent on Russian gas for 3% of our gas needs. I think he just committed to supporting, this may be news to some of his party, but he just committed to supporting more nuclear power. Great news. There is more joy in heaven, Mr. Speaker. There is more joy in heaven.
Come off it. Labour is pro-nuclear. This Prime Minister can't get a single brick laid of a new nuclear plant. Energy security isn't just about supply, it's also about reducing demand.
Nobody should support this government when it comes to the response to the refugee crisis. 760 visa approvals in 2 weeks is disgraceful. In that time, Poland has taken over 1.2 million refugees. Hungary has taken over 190,000 refugees. Germany has taken over 50,000 refugees. Italy, over 7,000 refugees. Ireland, a country of just over 5 million people, has given sanctuary to 3 times as many refugees as the United Kingdom. Does the Prime Minister find it acceptable that his Home Secretary has overseen one of the slowest, most bureaucratic and incompetent refugee responses in the whole of Europe?
Mr. Speaker, I think everybody sympathises with the plight of refugees, and this government wants to do everything we can to welcome them, and that is indeed what we are doing. And this government has a proud record. We've done more to resettle vulnerable people than any other European country since 2015.
Ian Blackford.
I don't think the Prime Minister understands the scale of the challenge or the urgency. These are people fleeing war crimes. In the face of the biggest refugee crisis in Europe since the Second World War, the UK government won't set aside the hostile environment. And by the way, we're seeing the hostile environment this afternoon. They might quieten down a bit. Scotland stands ready to offer sanctuary and refuge. So will the Prime Minister join with the rest of the European continent and waive the visa restrictions for refugees fleeing war in Ukraine?
And what we are doing is making sure that in those neighbouring countries, the UK is out in front, giving the humanitarian assistance, and we are in every capital, Mr. Speaker. They laugh, Mr. Speaker, they mock, they scoff. This country is leading in every respect.
I commend the Prime Minister's response to this Ukrainian crisis, but I think people across the country are genuinely concerned on our response on refugees, on the bureaucracy, on the tone of our response. He's shown with vaccines that government change really comes from the very top. Please can I urge him to look at again on resetting our policy and taking control of a more humane approach to those women and men fleeing from Ukraine.
I thank him very much. He will have. I thank him very much. I thank him for all the work that he does in this area. But I hope he will have heard what I've just said in my.
In the months before World War II, the UK took in over 60,000 Jewish refugees fleeing Nazi persecution. Over half a century ago, we took in over 27,000 Ugandans expelled by Idi Amin. Since then, we've taken Tamils escaping civil war, Bosnians escaping genocide, and Syrians escaping Assad. But this week, the Home Office turned away hundreds of Ukrainian refugees escaping Putin's bombs because they didn't have the right paperwork. Can the Prime Minister not see that this flies in the face of our country's proud tradition of providing sanctuary?
What he says about the UK is, I'm afraid, completely wrong, Mr. Speaker, because we have visa centres open in Warsaw, in Budapest, in Prague, in Jeszczał, in Poland, in Chisinau, in Moldova, Bucharest, and elsewhere, Mr. Speaker. No one has been turned away, Mr. Speaker. That is simply we want to be as generous and Mr. Speaker. It is important to have checks. Let me make this point to the House, because I think people need to understand that we are going to be as generous as we can possibly be, but we must have checks.